Trade talks, a lot of them. You heard about the U.S.-China one where the officials went their separate ways. They're talking back to their superiors, see what happens in terms of getting talks going again. Of course, the ongoing NAFTA talks with Mexico, Canada not part of that. Many had hoped that they would have a deal in place by now. They're getting close, though. To former Chief of Staff for Paul Ryan, David Hoppe, and market watcher Craig Smith on what to make of all of this. So, David, to you first. No Mexico deal yet. Obviously, it could be a matter of dotting the I's, crossing the T's. We're told that will be the first one scored. What do you think?
Well, you always hold your breath, Neil, when one of these is close. But it does appear that this agreement with Mexico on autos particularly is very close to happening. That would be a great positive, I think, because I think it would take some of the pressure off the tariffs on European autos, or getting something done on that, or moving forward on that. And it also may give us a line into and a vision into what might be done with European autos so that we can lower tariffs there, hopefully, and get rid of them as opposed to raising tariffs. So I think this Mexico one is very important, and we are holding our breath right now.
Craig, I know we can get into the weeds about this, that the big hang-up and the differences have to do with how much of the vehicle is ultimately constructed in North America versus elsewhere. I get that. But if you pardon me and step back from this and look at the possibility of if we get a deal with the Mexicans, obviously the markets will think we're on the verge of getting something with the Canadians, or just the opposite. What do you think?
Well, I'm pretty optimistic that the trade talks with Mexico are going to turn out very positive for us. I'm not as optimistic, Neil, about China. I think what we didn't see in that statement today from everybody that was negotiating in Washington is more revealing than what was in the statement. And that was that there will be no further talks. There aren't any scheduled talks right now. And I think that really America we have a problem with China right now, Neil, and we have to deal with it.
Yeah, they seem to be our biggest threat for the time being, David. Obviously, the president prefers, dealing country by country. That's why he's talking to Mexico on this NAFTA thing. After that, potentially Canada. But China does seem to be our biggest problem, and we don't seem to be making much progress there. What do you think of that?
Well, the meeting that's being held today in Washington between the European Union, Japan, and the U.S. on China, on WTO and China's position in WTO, I think is a very hopeful meeting.
You're talking about the World Trade Organization.
That's right. And what I think, putting that meeting together and focusing on a strategy that takes China to the WTO to make them live by the rules of the WTO, first of all, make sure that they are no longer treated as a developing country, but also so they aren't stealing intellectual property, they're not coercing people into giving some of their trade secrets and background and information to them. That is the strategy I think we should be pursuing on China, so I'm very hopeful that that meeting will help set out a better road for working with China. But I agree that the meetings they had the last 2 days did not go very far.
Craig, both you and David are experts on this stuff. I'm not, but I have a couple of crackpot theories. One is that the Chinese particularly are going to wait out the midterms. I think they're very convinced that this is going to hurt Republicans in states like Pennsylvania and Illinois, even Texas, where a lot of these measures, these trade tariffs that the president is considering are very, very unpopular. And they're going to see what happens after that before they make a concession. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you're right, Neil. I think that the Chinese are very, very strategic in their thinking, and they're taking into consideration the elections that are coming up and how the American people are going to perceive this administration and its ability to be able to not only say they're going to get something done, but actually get it done, Neil. And look, the Chinese have identified 3 areas that are very key to the United States trade officials. One is increasing China's purchases of American goods. Number 2 is opening up new markets for American goods, which I think over time can happen in China, both those issues. The third issue, though, this whole idea of intellectual properties and forcing American tech companies to give them, code and so on and so forth, I don't think the Chinese are going to give on that, Neil. And I think that's where you're going to see the real sticky mess come. Look, we have $50 billion in goods that are being charged 25% tariffs right now as tit for tat. We're threatening another $200 billion. I'm just not sure, Neil, that the Chinese are willing to give us what we need. And I think Mr. Trump needs to really think twice. And quite frankly, Neil, get all of his players on the same page. Mnuchin and David Malpass are talking a whole lot different than Peter Navarro. And
I think you're right. They're all over the map.
I really believe that, Neil. And unless he has one theme, I think he's going to have a tough time getting a deal done.
David, you're going to say?
I agree with that, but I think the theme is that if we work together with our allies in Europe and work with Japan, we all have a shared interest in the Chinese working in the world trade community fairly. And if we get together, the rest of the world gets together and tells the Chinese and tells the World Trade Organization they have to live up to the standards of that group. That's where we will have the most leverage rather than going by ourselves or just through tariffs from the U.S. on China.
Well, I love you to death, David, but I'm telling you, I mean, I have high hopes for going on a diet and eating healthy, and it is yet to materialize. All right, so we'll see what happens. But, guys, thank you both. Have a wonderful weekend. You're the best, and I do appreciate it.